This presentation aims to educate horse owners about equine training methods, including clicker training and target training using clicker training. So, what is clicker training? Clicker training is a popular animal training technique. Clicker training is used by clicker training derived from lab-based studies of animal learning. Clicker training should result in animals learning new tasks at a faster rate. May also be used. So, what is target training? Target training responds to a cue. Target training teaches the horse to touch an object. Through associative learning, the horse learns to associate the cue with the desired behaviour. The horse is then rewarded once desired behaviour is displayed. Head lowering. Classical and operant conditioning is used in response to a cue to teach head lowering. This may be a positional cue by placing a hand on the horse's poll, or it could be a vocal cue. This teaches the horse to lower its head in response to the cue, and teaching head lowering can be useful to train for welfare and care practices, such as teaching the horse to lower its head for the application of eye drops.
Do you think you're capable of that?
Teaching head lowering reduces the horse's heart rate and cortisol levels, reducing stress, and can be used to aid medical care by lowering the head to administer things like eye drops or creams. Operant conditioning can include positive or negative reinforcement. When using negative reinforcement, something is removed, e.g. pressure. The horse is rewarded by removing something that it doesn't like. Positive reinforcement includes an addition, such as giving the horse a treat or a scratch as a reward. It reinforces the behaviour with something the horse likes and can be based on its individual motivations. The reward needs to appeal to motivate the horse to display the desired behaviour in response to the cue. So now we'll have a look at the science behind operant conditioning. Reinforcement is used in response to a cue. The information from sensory and motor regions of the brain as the prefrontal cortex. The striatum receives inputs from the prefrontal cortex and encodes the value of behaviour, repetition or information based on perceived outcomes, what horse thinks the behaviour outcomes. The amygdala plays the role of emotionally evaluating the consequences of each behaviour and forming beliefs to associate the behaviour with positive or negative outcomes. Dopamine is released in response to positive outcomes to reinforce the behaviour compared to that outcome. And serotonin modulates the impact of positive So this should help us associate Q classical conditioning. Again, classical conditioning is in response to a cue. A previously neutral stimulus is repeatedly paired with an unconditioned stimulus, which elicits an innate response. The neutral stimulus activates the sensory cortex, sending the information to the thalamus, which then relays this information to the amygdala. The amygdala then activates the hypothalamus and brainstem to produce the unconditioned response if the stimulus is paired with an unconditioned response that elicits an innate response. Memory consolidation and association between the neutral stimulus and conditioned stimulus is stored in long-term memory with repeated pairings through the hippocampus. The cerebellum coordinates the motor response accompanying the conditioned response. So in simple terms, this means that a posture or voice signal is given as a cue. This acts as a safety signal and teaches associates with the desired behavior. There are two types of learning theory to consider: associative and non-associative learning. Associative learning is using classical and operant conditioning, which are the training methods used in the video on the next slide. Non-associative is habituation and desensitization. The following slide shows potential training sessions using classical and operant conditioning and shows these methods applied to real-life case studies. This training session was all about conditioning the bridge, so as it was this horse's first time doing any sort of kippy training, I just wanted to begin the foundations and prevent any broken behaviour. So every time she turned her head away and was in the desired position, I marked the behaviour wanted by picking my tongue and then I repeated this a few times just so that she got to understand it, and then started introducing some very basic target training with a homemade target. I did this by using classical conditioning, using my voice to say target to if I didn't get the response I wanted straight away, like here, it took him a moment. I just waited and then made sure that the click was marking the behaviour at the exact moment that I wanted it to. He was also taking into holding to do some training, so I began just walking him around, habituating him to the environment, and just getting him used to the arena. I did some walk to halt and halt to walk transitions to see how he responded, and for this I used negative reinforcement, so when he responded to my cue of halting, I released the rein pressure, and I also used positive reinforcement, rewarding him with a little scratch. So yeah, really I was just getting a bit of an idea of how he was responding to my cues and what he generally thought of the environment. Here he displayed some mouth displacement of trying to put his brains in his mouth and chew them. So I ignored the behaviour that I didn't want. So then I began to start teaching head down. I began using classical conditioning, placing my hand on his pole as a posture cue to encourage him to put his head down, and then when he responded, released it. So negative reinforcement, releasing that pressure. I also used positive reinforcement, encouraging him with pony nuts. He responded well to them. He's a very food-centered pony, so the positive reinforcement with that worked quite nicely. So here I was using a handheld clicker, but some of the other training I did just click my tongue, and both of them, the horses responded to both of them. So it was good to habituate them to two different types of marker. Although I started teaching the head down and he responded quite well to it, I decided for the rest of the session introducing a bit of target training would be more beneficial for my assignment. So again, with the pony from before, I marked the behaviour that I wanted following the vocal cue of saying the word target. He didn't understand at first. There was a few miscommunications, so I just ignored the behaviour that I didn't want. And then when he touched the target, I marked it by clicking and then rewarded him using positive reinforcement from the pony nuts. Again, ignoring the behaviours that I didn't want, like here he lifts his leg up, that's quite common for him, so I just ignored that. And then if he didn't seem to understand it, I asked the question slightly differently, and I'd make it a bit easier to try and help him achieve what I was asking, so I'd bring the target a bit closer and make sure that he was able to achieve it. And then he picked it up quite quickly. I was able to put the target in different places, and he got the hang of it quite quickly. So then I made it a bit different. I put him behind a barrier and then moved the target around to slightly different positions, above, to the side, just to ask him some more questions, using the same principles that I'd been following before. And he responded really well to it. He took it in quite quickly and gave me with the results that I was wanting. So again, this was using both operant conditioning and classical conditioning, with the operant conditioning being the positive reinforcement of rewarding with the pony nuts, and the classical conditioning being the voice cue, which I was using for the target. So this helped him associate the cue of my voice with the behaviour that I wanted, and then associating the click that marked the desired behaviour with the reward. So when I clicked, he knew to anticipate feed. So then, to mark the end of the training session, he received a jackpot of lots of pony nuts to make sure he knew that the training session had finished. So I followed the exact same principle with this horse too. He hadn't done anything like this before, so I started slowly and just introduced it. He was actually really clever and picked it up pretty quickly. I decided to do some of the training in the stable because I wanted to compare how differently they'd respond in their stable, which is their normal environment that they're habituated to, and an arena that they have been habituated to but don't spend as much time in. So I was intrigued to see how differently they'd respond, and also away from other distractions like other horses. Because this horse picked it up so quickly, I went into his stable and I used the same method but put the target in different places to kind of ask more questions and get him to use his brain a little bit more. He was very clever and picked it up pretty quickly. What would be good for him to develop this further would be bringing the target round to his side like this, but further to get him to stretch, which would be really beneficial for him, especially as he's currently being rehabbed for kissing spines. So this would be a use of clicker training and target training that would actually benefit him. This horse has quite a character, so again, when he displayed behaviour that wasn't particularly helpful or I didn't want, I ignored it until he gave me the behaviour that I wanted, and I marked it and rewarded it.
I'm actually not going to turn out anymore because I just cannot come back and do that one torso. So you can leave yours out.
Again, he didn't understand it. I just waited until he gave me the response that I wanted, and we just repeated this for a little while. So he would associate the behaviour with the cues and then obviously the reward, and he picked it up pretty quickly. He was really good, and then was rewarded with lots of scratches at the end and feed. He responds well to both scratches and feed as a reward, so both of them are useful for his training sessions.
So I can put this as the jackpot reward at the end.
So when rewarding with the positive reinforcement of pony nuts, I made sure that I tried to feed centrally, so I'd put my hand out in front and make sure that his head was centered and not mugging me. We used two different types of targets. During the earlier training, it would be useful to keep the same so that the horse can associate, and it helps their learning. But as they develop and get a better understanding of the target training, it would be good to introduce different objects as the target. So I've put some examples of the behaviour that I do not want. So most of these were a miscommunication or due to my cues and timing being wrong. So this was in the beginning where I was getting to grips with how to ask for the behaviour that I wanted, and the ponies were starting to understand how to do it. So if
Good morning.
there was behaviour that I didn't want, or I didn't get the answer that I wanted straight away, I ignored the negative behaviour, and if they still didn't understand it, I asked the question slightly differently to make it achievable.
Hidden screen recording still running.
Target. I think I've probably got enough.
These horses all have different purposes, different experience, and have different personalities and motivations. They're all at different stages in their training, and all of them are new to clicker training and target training. But it just goes to show that clicker training can be used on any type of horse. So by using completely different horses as examples, it's very interesting to see how they process things differently and how their learning and cognition changes. It's interesting to compare how they learn and how they respond to different cues and what motivates them as a reward. So I hope this video has provided an insight into the beginning of clicker training with all three of these horses and how it can develop as they progress further.